Well, hey, everybody, welcome to today's episode. This one, you might want to buckle up a little bit for we are going into an issue that's happening across our nation. A lot of times you might hear it phrased as banning books or book banning. I really want to get to the bottom of what that whole conversation is about. And so my friend Karen England, you might know her as the kitchen table activist, is going to join us today. She has been in public policy for over 27 years, I think going on 30 years. Right now, she is the president of Capital Resource Institute, and that's a public policy organization that supports parents with parental rights, religious freedom, and all sorts of things. I consider Karen sort of my free political consultant. She has been in this field advocating for children for a very long time, and she now has sort of found a niche where she's going deeper in this area of pornography in schools and the how it works, the way it works, how the libraries are working, how the public library works with the public school libraries. She's just a wealth of information. She helps us understand it in a very simplistic way, quite frankly, so she can help you really advocate in your own communities for your own children. Here's the reason that I think it's important. There are so many parents, and honestly, when I speak to pastors about talking to their congregations and we're in conversation, there's so many people that lean in and say, Suzanne, is this real? I mean, is this really happening? And I want to say with just a megaphone, yes, 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 this is really happening. These books are absolutely far more graphic than you would imagine. And when you have parents that are walking into school board meetings reading small excerpts to school boards and the school boards arresting them or shutting them down because of the content, yet the books sit on the shelves in the schools across the nation in every district, we know we have a problem. And so this is not one of these things that we want to cause fear. We really just want to give you the facts because, again, informed parents make informed decisions. So we're going to lean in with Karen. We're going to learn the hard things, and we're going to just wait for God to stir us on what our action will be. It might not be the same as hers, but I guarantee you're going to feel stirred. So let's lean in and be informed. Hey, Karen, thanks so much for joining me today. I've loved your work. I'm excited to bring it to a new audience. So thanks for being here.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it takes all of us, right? And waking parents up and getting them engaged and involved. And you were that parent. So tell us, before we get started in what your work is, tell us a little bit about just you, your family, and really what your organization is. And then we'll go from there about how it all started and what you're doing.
Okay, so I'm a mom and I should have said wife and a mother and a grandmother and 5 grandkids. And so I just care deeply about the sexualization of our kids, especially at the hands of our tax dollars. I feel like we're somewhat complicit when our tax dollars are being used to sexualize our kids. And so that's just kind of a little bit about my general passion. And I have a very supportive husband who also knows that this is a serious issue in our culture.
So you're the president. You're president of an organization. Then you have kitchen table activists. So tell us just a little bit about the different arms of what you're doing, and then we'll get a little bit more into the story and what's actually happening.
So we have a Capital Resource Institute, which has been around long before me. It's a pro-family public policy organization. Okay. I actually went to work there August 1st, 1999, part-time. So I've now been with them for quite some time. So in addition to that, we have several programs. We have the Take Back the Classroom, which works on the sexualization of our kids and stopping it in our public schools. And then Kitchen Table Activist is more my media name, and the podcasts we do, which we are restarting, to help parents understand how to engage and advocate.
There you go.
Going back to the basics, the 10 commandments of effective advocacy. I mean, again, parents want to be involved. They want to do something, but government seems so intimidating that we try and break it down in under 20 minutes, how to get engaged.
That's great. And I love the stories that are always behind the work. And so will you tell a little bit of story? I mean, you started with, I'm a mom. So just a little bit of the story of how you ended up in this almost 30 years ago in the work that you're doing. How did that start?
Well, I've always thought this word, this phrase was trite, that God equips the called. but it really is true because I got a D- in government. So I have to say that he also has such a sense of humor. So years ago, we had kids. We had just moved to California. We had foster kids. A couple of things. God was doing a huge work all at the same time in different areas, but two things that were significant. We couldn't even afford preschool for our daughter and keep me at home, our youngest, and so we joined a community preschool and run by the county, and that's where I found out that we had to go to meetings and we are in charge of reading books about not spanking our children, and they kids would throw buckets at my daughter's head or whatever kids do at preschool,
Right.
and there was no timeout. There was nothing. It was, Jordan, go tell them how you feel about this. And I'm like, well, I feel like this child should be in timeout. So there was that going on, and I realized, wow, I people don't think like I do. I was a new believer,
Okay.
which brings me to the second thing, which was the foster son. And I was reading in the newspaper that this radical right Christian woman was trying to ruin the public schools that was on the school board over sex ed. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need to go see who this is because I don't think I know one of those. I'm a Christian, and my husband had been with Campus Crusade for Christ. And so I was like, and I was thinking through his friends, I'm like, I don't think I know someone like that. I go to this school board meeting and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm it. I'm that religious
Wow.
right extremist because I actually think abstinence should be taught. And this was over 30 years ago in Rockland, California, very conservative area. And I was, and that all of these things were waking me up all at the same time. And I got active with Concerned Women for America and Equal Forum, volunteering for many years. Then went part time at the organization I'm now president of. So that's how it all started. I never intended it, but God did.
And even a little bit as you describe that, you're like, it was a little bit, I'm not even sure I know my own worldview. I think so often we have conversations about worldview or we don't. And when I start to describe a worldview, it's like, no, that doesn't line up. That doesn't, I'm like, but yes, because this isn't biblical, but we get all this stuff enmeshed. I started the season by talking about just this phrase that God gave me of pop culture parenting. And how easy it is for all of us, not just our kids, to sort of fall to the trend, fall to the theory, fall to everything but the truth. Because when you go back to the truth, you actually have to dissect it a little bit and discern how to apply it, which is what wisdom is. And so I love the fact that you're even able to look back and say, gosh, I didn't even honestly know what I believed or where it fit in the whole scheme. You just knew your mama's heart was like, this is not it.
Yeah.
Right.
And as a new believer, it goes past Sunday morning,
Right.
and past just my quiet time, that I am living in the world and I'm not to be of that world. And that means engaging, if my children are in public school or private school, that requires my involvement. The stewardship is God has placed in my hands.
In your hands, yes.
Yeah. And so biblical worldview, and I, just because you brought it up, my husband, who teaches Bible at a private school now, it's biblical or anti-biblical, and those are our only two choices. And so it's not some other worldview, it's a worldview that hates God. And we need to always be aware of, we are fighting those principalities, and they are not giving up. They're not losing sleep. They are working 24/7 to get their hands on our kids.
That's a great way to put it. Well, one of the reasons I love to hear people's story or many parts of their story is because as I've done this work just in the past 5 years, what I find over and over and over is most people that I talk to, myself included, don't wake up and, they weren't dreaming as little girls or little boys to say, I can't wait to start a school. I didn't even like school, and I started school. Or, you didn't wake up one day and go, hey, I think I'm going to be a lobbyist. Or this is really the work of God in our lives and the outpouring of protection for our own family that just then goes into our community and elsewhere. And so when you think about that, you've described work, but you've got a very niche. You found a very niche place. It's really critical because it has to do with a lot of policy and things that parents don't understand, but there's also a lot of talk and jargon around it. And I want to really focus on that today because as we do, I want the listeners, the audience to hear, I talk to pastors all the time. about coming to speak to congregations or speak to their parents. And in the midst of a conversation that has nothing to do with what we're about to talk about, they'll say, Suzanne, now is this these books in school, this pornography in school, is that really happening? And that's the face that they make because it's so unbelievable. I 100% understand why that's the face you make and why the question mark is on your forehead, because it really is a difficult thing to comprehend and get your head wrapped around. But you have found a way to inform parents, but also equip parents across the United States. And so can we talk a little bit about pornography in schools, the books that we're finding, and what you're doing about it?
Yes, absolutely. And I left out of my story how I had heard in California about a bill called the Parents Report Card, where they're going to grade parents on whether or not they had a quiet place for the kids to study. And I couldn't believe it. So I went and I at that time, no internet, I pulled the bill and read it and thought, oh my goodness, I just need to tell someone about this because they'll agree with me that this is crazy. And that's how it started.
Wow.
For me. And then, yes, after COVID, I feel like the Lord really impressed on me that this next decade of my activism should be about the sexualization of our kids using our tax dollars. And I used to be one of those moms. I've been doing comprehensive sex ed for actually my first school board meeting I went to when I found out I was the religious right extremist trying to ruin the school district. I get there, it was over sex ed. And so it's interesting that we've kind of become full circle. And after COVID, I really believe this next decade is about the sexualization of our kids. So I used to poo-poo the moms that worried about the books because I thought, what's one book in a library? Until I really started digging deep. I think we met at a conference.
We did.
And I was just starting on the books, but I was like, I thought those people, I'm just being honest and transparent. I was very judgmental, and I really thought they should care more about sex ed. And I mean, that was my internal attitude that I was, and I just didn't think the books were a huge deal until I started to look. And how deep and wide it is with our tax dollars, how common it is, and how I have no problem using the word grooming. Because when you look at the school books that they're assigned and the school books in the library and in the public library, it starts in kindergarten and goes to 12th grade, and they're inundated with sexualization, not just in culture, but in our schools with our tax dollars. And so that's when I thought, you know what, I need to create a tool because I will hear it's not in my school.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to, and that's what we did. We built a website that shows the specific book in the specific school with excerpts from that book. You can decide as a parent if you want to do something about that.
So I want to just make sure parents understand a couple of things, that there are ways with technology and this one-to-one devices where students have their school email, and a lot of times those emails are then connected to a software, right, that connects then to the public library. So I don't think parents understand that. Like, you can have all the lockdowns you want on your computer at home, but if a student were to use their school library, I mean, because I want to get to the actual books, but this is a big one. If they
like
were
the school login,
if they were to get to their school login, that then is linked to some of the software. There's more than one software, but then that goes into the public library. And once you're in, your student has access, even if you've locked down all the other things, the student has access to whatever books are in that public library. Is that still the case?
That is still the case. Those are the ebooks, and those are a problem. And they have access through the school library as well, and the programs that are there. So they have access to that. In addition to, you can find out what's in your school library, and you can actually see what books are being checked out. You'll see that we have 3 copies, 2 of them are checked out right now from this middle school. And so you can see all of that, but your kids also have access to them through Sora and ebooks and can access them. And The American Library Association is very powerful, and they're the ones giving direction to librarians in public libraries and in public schools. And they have an ALA, American Library Association Bill of Rights, and they have a minors Bill of Rights, and they publicly state there should be no restrictions on content no matter what age. And so when you get into that public library or that public school library, that's what your kids are going to be exposed to, that mindset. The great thing is for schools, we have a way to actually get these books removed.
Right.
And so that's why we're focusing on the schools. But yeah, your kids everywhere. I shared this with you. I live in Tennessee where we have a law against this stuff, and that 4 years ago, all school libraries were supposed to be cleaned up. I have some of the worst books in the school district I happen to live in. So this fall we're gonna tackle that. But it's everywhere. I mean, red county, red state, Tennessee.
Well, I want to make sure this is emphasized. So the ALA, the American Library Association, is not only giving directives to the public library, but you said the ALA is giving directives to the public school libraries as well.
Oh yes, they have newsletters. They have a rating system, and so often, if you talk to a librarian, they will go check the rating system that the ALA gives them internally on these books. Well, these books are pervasively vulgar, and there's a lot of sexual indoctrination, and the library doesn't have any problem with that because, again, they don't believe in age restriction.
Right.
They believe knowledge is power, and that we need to just give them all this knowledge, and who cares what their parents think. So yeah, the American Library Association is who librarians count on. They're the ones that give these books awards. You know, I mean, they're so influential, and it's not like the days when I was growing up and my mom volunteered at the library for a Friday and, was the librarian. And now they've got these master's degrees and these, I had somebody tell me, I said, do you think the librarian knows more than the parent about what a kid should read? And she said, yes, she's got a master's degree.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So gosh, it's just so much to think about. I think parents maybe don't understand either that the ALA is a huge lobby. I mean, they have a huge arm for lobbying with legislation. So I think a lot of times we just don't think about what's happening down like the network underneath that makes all of this. These are not the roots. We're seeing the shoots of much deeper roots that are popping up when we see things in libraries in our schools. There's a lot more going on beneath the surface. And so let me ask one more question, because I'm actually very curious about this. So I have heard, and I'm not sure I understand it, that sometimes librarians order the books, like they place the orders and fill the school libraries, but other times books are just sent to them and they make their way into the shelves or onto the shelves. Is that true? Like what is the process for a school librarian in getting books into the library?
Well, the process is, and again, I'm making a generalization, but I work in a lot of states, so I haven't seen any state where it's not done this way, where they are given a budget and they order the books, period.
Okay.
And that's what comes in. They can also accept ones where Glisten or some of these more progressive groups sends them. But I think people are under a misunderstanding, thinking that the librarians aren't buying the majority of them. When you do a deep dive on the Glisten books, they are focused on donating to underserved minority communities. And so they are very big, in rural Alabama or Georgia, or that's where they're putting their donations to. And they're very upfront about it, that, you can look. They've got places where 83% of their books are going to minority communities. So it's usually the librarian. And it's hundreds of thousands of dollars on this. I call it pornographic, and that's not hyperbole.
No, it's not.
A lot of it, which is why our website, takebacktheclassroom.com, we show the excerpts. If you're okay with minors having access to this, then don't do anything about it. But I'm not okay with it. And so I want to help parents in that arena. But yeah, it's usually the librarian. I recently was up in Oregon, and a librarian finally had to give in her notice. And she came to me. I was speaking at something in tears because she loved her kids.
Mm-hmm.
She loved being a librarian. And recently she'd been called in by the director of the school librarians, and they laid out all these books and said, you've got to have this percentage of this category that you purchase, of this category, LGBTQ that you purchase, of this category. And she said, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it.
Well, I think that's so important to understand. I know, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people over the years, even on this podcast. And so often, people get riled up about the teacher or riled up about the positions in the school. And I think it's so important to understand that these are people with jobs and professions, and they love the kids and they love what they're doing. I mean, there are some characters that are
Right.
in the, let's be honest, but there's so many people like, this is not what I signed up to do, but I've been doing this for years, and feel handcuffed or go as far as they can to get around. But if you're given a directive and you have to follow something, you really are. I mean, these teachers and librarians and a lot of administrators are really faced with, it's my values, right? Or my job. And not just my job, but these are the kids. I love what my job was and should be, but I can't compromise. And so it's such a difficult road, and it's not to be assumed that every librarian is doing this just because this is what every librarian believes.
Right.
But the pressure to do so and the policy that's coming, often they don't have choice, and many break, right? And say, I just can't do it anymore.
Well, and that's why parents need to engage at the school board level, because we're actually helping that librarian that does care and want to keep her job. The administration, if we can go in and change the policy, or if we can go in and challenge and get the book removed, that's supporting that person who wants the pure stuff, the classics for our kids to read, that it have a love of reading. And so, we have a role in this because of the government we've been given. And a lot of times people think, oh, I can't go to my school board meeting. Well, you know what? Even the National School Board Association says that school boards are supposed to reflect the beliefs and values of the community and the taxpayer. So it's not supposed to reflect some other progressive group or the teachers union. It's supposed to reflect the local community. And so what happens at a San Francisco school district is going to be entirely different than well, maybe not Atlanta, Georgia, but another town
Right.
in Clarksville, Tennessee. It's supposed to reflect our values. And so they don't know it's our values if we're not telling them, we want you to represent our values. And so school boards are really, really important.
It's such a great point. I want you to share, if you would, a few of the names. We are going to get to a couple of excerpts, and we're going to do that, professionally as we can. But I want first, can you just give a few names of books, like titles of books that are just, they're everywhere. You see them over and over and over again. And I do want to stress, you're focused right now on public school. This is in private schools as well. It's also in some elite private schools that call themselves Christian. Front and center in the lobby at the front of I've seen it in Atlanta, for sure. And so this is not just about public school. That's sort of where your focus is. But the books, some of these titles, these are going to be across, public, private, 100%. And so are there some that just, like, they just won't go away? They just keep popping up and you see them over and over, that you want to just tell parents, look out for these titles?
Sure. I'll start with the titles that are commonly assigned
Okay.
for freshman English for 14-year-olds.
For freshman English. Okay.
Yes, for freshman English all across the country.
Okay.
From Tennessee to Georgia to California, Montana, Wyoming. They're everywhere. And that would be The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. We've got Push, which was made into a movie. Yes, very awful. Looking for Alaska, Meet Earl and the Dying Girl. Those are just 4 of the common ones that are assigned for students to read. And so you need to be on the lookout for those. And they're in every state. Like I said, 2 years ago in Tennessee, my school district, for their English class, all of those were on the list that they were given to read from. There are a few authors, and I'm just going to show you the book cover, but a
Okay.
few authors, because you will have seen this at the airport. You see
Yep.
this author
Hmm.
everywhere. Her own words on the back of the book about how dark and sensual it is should be a tip off to anyone. But I have not found a school district that has high schools that do not have this author's books, if not the whole series. And so it's Sarah J. Maas,
Anywhere in
and
the country, every district.
yeah, and we've covered all 50 states, thousands of school districts, and I have not found one that does not have one of her books, if not the entire series. The other one would be an author called Ellen Hopkins, and this is her book, and I'll do an excerpt from it. But this is Tricks. They're everywhere. The Haters. She does People Kill People. I mean, they're
I mean, the
just
titles alone. Oh,
cranked, crack. Yeah,
horrific.
yeah. So anything from Ellen Hopkins or Sarah J. Maas in your and normally they're in high school. They do trickle down in some middle schools, but they're everywhere. I haven't found a state that does not have those two authors.
Okay, and then before we do an excerpt, and I'm going to give warning on that, parents. But before we do that, what age would you say that children are being exposed to to sexual material in general? For sure, middle school, but like, let's go ahead. Let's share.
Okay. Well, here's a book that's common in public schools. It's called The Big Bathhouse, and it's in Tennessee, and it is a picture book accessible to a kindergartner. And the left or progressives or those that support it will say this is about Asian culture. But what it's about is the pictures are adult women, and you can't tell that they're all women, with children in the bathhouse pool. And so when you turn it page after page, a kindergartner, first grader, second, third, fourth grader isn't getting the message about culture. They're getting the message that adults naked with children is normal. And so that's one, and there are several that are like that. And then there's the LGBTQ ones that are my shadow is pink,
Right.
my shadow is blue. I mean, there's just so
There's
many of them.
Yeah.
And so it starts in kindergarten. I will say there's a chapter book called I'll think of it, but it's all over elementary and definitely middle school. Oh, The Art of Racing in the Rain. And so that's everywhere, but it was made into a movie. Movies have got to leave things that the book has in it out in order to make the R or PG rating. And so the book has all the awful stuff. And so, for instance, that book, it's got a cute dog on the front of it. It's telling life from this Labrador retriever. So the kid brings the book home and you're like, oh, this is such a cute story. What a cute puppy. But he's watching his dog owners.
Yeah, say no more. Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, but
be physical
yeah.
and descriptive. And so it's like, I don't know what the point of that is, but so you don't know, and you're thinking your kid's reading this book, and oh, I'm so glad in 6th grade he's into this chapter book, and it's smut.
Just unreal. So, okay, so parents, if we're going to read just a couple of excerpts, we're not going to go into grave detail. We're going to sort of bleep a little bit of it out, but I think one of the reasons it's important to do this, I don't even post a lot of this stuff or repost a lot of this stuff on my social media, and I'm giving warning Wednesdays every warning just for the sake of the language. It's difficult. Right. It's difficult However, I do, because so many parents and pastors are saying this can't be, or you're just, you're blowing this up. Like this is real and it's graphic. Right. And so what I want to do right now is, parents, we're going to just read a couple of things. If you want to turn this down, if you're with your children or you don't want to hear it, come back in a minute. We've got some more stuff about legislation. But I am going to just ask you to read a couple and, bleep it out however you're going to do it. But I think it's important that we understand the level that we're talking about, that this is not just, it's not light. So I'll let you do it. You do.
Well, yeah, and I usually do say the words, and my Instagram posts do have the words, but only because you should be offended at what I say,
Yes.
which I'm not going to say here. I'm going to blank it out. You should be offended, and if you don't hear it, you still think that, oh, it's the crazy white right winger who's a prude who doesn't want to learn about puberty.
And that it's book
And
banning and yeah,
yeah, and
all
his
the,
book, yeah.
yes.
So I'm going to read just something from Sarah J. Maas, The Court of Mist and Fury, and I'm okay. I'm going to try and I am going to bleep words out, but his tongue swept my mouth again. My hips demanding more. I don't know how I can even.
Yeah.
Blunt. I moved anyway. I gulped down. It just goes on and on and on. Lowered on the bed. I'm leaving a lot
out.
Yeah, a lot out. But that tells you what's in there. I will say the tricks. It just starts with swollen with desire, demanding, lips locked to mine, and then goes on. Now, all of our books meet what I believe to be the legal threshold of pervasively vulgar as the U.S. Supreme Court. So when I read an excerpt like this, or we have a book on our website, it's not a one-off. So it's not, one sentence on something. It's throughout the book. And our excerpts are taken from books throughout the book to show that it's pervasively vulgar. It's not a one-off that they're talking about nocturnal dreams or something in using other language.
Right.
That's not what I'm talking about.
No, and
I'm talking about pornographic.
And I appreciate you. I mean, you don't have to say much to know where that's going, but like the crank. I mean, I read an excerpt from that one time, and I could not. I still can't even believe. I can't believe I read it. But when you see parents going into school board meetings and reading this stuff and the courage that it takes, but it's so necessary. And school boards literally saying to parents, you have to be quiet. You can't speak like that. You can't use that language that's vulgar, and not making the connection that it's on the shelves in the school. It really is almost insane. But I will say, parents, if you want to just know more and your kids are in school and you want to know more of this, I mean, there is a pastor in California, Pastor Jack Hibbs, who's just fighting tooth and nail in that state. And he has had you on several times and just said, read the whole thing. Read it. Parents need to know. And I agree. We have to understand what we're really talking about. To sort of get beyond the book banning conversation. We have to understand.
And I will say, Suzanne, there are a lot of people, and I understand people who can't read it and who can't read it publicly. Not everyone
is going to
be built the way God built me. And I can't explain it. I mean, I have staff members that can't do certain things because of sexual trauma, or it raises issues for them. So I want to be sensitive to that. But yeah, Pastor Jack has wanted me to really get it out. And at school board meetings, I do get it out, because you know what? They bought that book, so they approve of that speech.
That's right.
They just don't approve of me letting the public know about that speech.
Well, and when parents have done the work that they need to do to help their kids, to help prevent porn coming into their home, and don't understand that the exposure is happening beyond their home in a way that they would with people that they trust or places that they trust, it's just important you understand. Informed parents make informed decisions. And so that's what we're trying to do here. Okay, now I'm gonna pivot just a little bit, because there's a difference between the books and curriculum. So I'm going to just state that, a lot of times if states have passed laws that say parents get to see curriculum, parents can ask for curriculum, and they go in and I'm not generalizing. I'm just, this is just how it happens. This is not, I am generalizing. This is not every school, every teacher, every whatever. But the idea is, if I go in and ask for curriculum, they legally have to show me. And I would say, Yes, if that's what the law states. However, curriculum can kind of be kept in a box and mean books, text.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just be honest. There aren't a lot of books being used. We have a lot of online, we have a lot of supplemental resources. And so the difference between what we would call the books being assigned and then curriculum, are you seeing the same type of information come in through curriculum?
Yes, absolutely. And I do find it ironic that schools are getting really interested in banning cell phones now, but then they have them all on tablets all day long. And so, and to think that kids aren't getting around it. But absolutely, there's a difference both in the law and in other ways. And so, library books are governed by a supreme, library books in schools are specifically governed on how to remove them, is governed by a very narrow Supreme Court case that we refer to as PICO. So, how to remove it, you've got to follow that. And those books do not go through a process, a committee, an approval. The librarian orders the books and they come. Where curriculum, usually there are state standards, there might be a process like in sex ed, how to adopt the textbook, etc. So those are two totally different things. But we were talking, and I think now they're going to do this even more. What a lot of parents don't know is when you ask to see the sex ed curriculum and they hand you that notebook, that's great. You open up that notebook and you have things in there. But what you don't know, and we didn't find out until we ordered all the curriculum from the state that California uses, and there's a flash drive that comes along with it. And where do you think all those really objectionable lessons are in? The flash drive. Or on the front page, it tells me the code I can log into for the next 7 years to get supplemental lessons. Where do you think all the supplemental lessons are? They're loaded there, and they're updating them every year for new issues, new things. So they've handed you a notebook, but you have no access to any of the supplemental material.
And that's across the board in all the subjects, like supplemental resources.
Yep.
I mean, it could be apps that they're using. It could be a movie clip that they're going to show.
Oh,
So I don't want parents to get the idea necessarily that because they've gone in and asked and they got the notebook or they got the textbook that because most educators don't know like a lesson plan is going to pull in, especially this day and age when we have so many unbelievable
right.
resources that we can get, that a great lesson plan is actually pulled all these different things in, and the principal might not even really know all the things that go into a lesson plan.
And it sends them to links and all,
That's right.
all sorts of other things. And you're right. The teacher's not even thinking about it until in January, she's preparing a lesson plan and goes to log on to, what are the updated resources and prints that. And you had no idea that was, whatever that was coming. And so parents are doing their due diligence. It's just the system is set up to hide things from them.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Okay, I have shared this with you, but I do want to get your take with it. There's a lot of great movement happening. Parents are waking up. Parents are stepping up. We are seeing pastors from across the country slowly step in and get involved. Incredible. But, there's a lot going on nationally with the talk of education, including the Department of Education and all of the executive orders. There's some really positive things happening. One of the things that I'm finding that alarms me, I wonder if it's doing the same with you, is, as those executive orders come down or the call of the Department of Education is going to be abolished, all that stuff, what's tending to happen is it's been taken care of. It's done, like it's fixed. It's done. They fixed it. We're good. And there are two things that really bother me about that. First of all, yeah, nothing happens that fast. Secondly, we've got decades of, really, I'm going to just call it what it is, indoctrination. We've got decades of exposure that children have been exposed to, primarily this past decade. We know for 5 years since COVID what kids have been exposed to, these books and all. So I'm a little concerned that parents who have started to press the gas and get involved and get engaged, and the foot has been on the gas, or might let up a little bit and say, "Shoo, We made it. We did it. And what do you say to that? Because I happen to believe that we've only just begun. I mean, that there's such a weeding process. And so what are your thoughts on that? Positive, negative? I'm curious.
Well, a couple of things. I think there's a positiveness that the president has brought things to the forefront, and I think it's empowered the average citizen and parent to start asking questions. But it also, when it comes to education, I think it's given a false sense of
I do too.
security because he gets rid of the Department of Education or signs an executive order saying something. And what that has actually done has brought the fight to the local level where the local progressive activists are very entrenched. So not only have these schools been teaching it, but so have the teaching colleges. So the kids
That's
that are
right.
coming out and going to be teaching your children. So, and like with library books, Trump can't fix it with an executive order because it's a Supreme Court case that governs how a book is removed. And he can't supersede a Supreme Court. So I'm concerned, and I mean, we do a lot of work in California, even the stuff with boys on girls sports team.
Yeah.
It's taken months, and we finally have gotten the Department of Justice to sue the state of California. But that was just because parents and grassroots on the ground complained to the Department of Education. So the fight is happening locally, and they weren't getting anywhere. And so now they're taking it to the Justice Department. But there are numerous states that are still allowing boys and girls locker rooms, all of that. And it's still happening. I just saw a post today from a friend in Tennessee, and we have a law against it. So again, you've got to be vigilant, record the stuff, get it, take a picture of the classroom or whatever, and get it to an organization that can help root this stuff out of the classroom.
Yeah, I think it's just a constant reminder to us that as parents, we've been entrusted with our children. And,
Yep.
I think we would all agree that maybe we abdicated our parental, not rights, but duties to some degree. I mean, I've heard that for years with, teachers, with school, with youth pastors. It's just almost this like, I don't know if I have what it takes. And so you do it kind of thing. And I'm super concerned that we might do the same thing about this is, oh my gosh, thank goodness. And I can back off. And I want to encourage parents to maybe be more diligent and more aware, because you might have even more power to stop things, because it starts at the local level and it can be stopped at the local level. And that is your community. And it's not just your children, it's your children's friends, it's children whose parents aren't aware at all that you're stepping into. So there's a huge opportunity, but we can't shrink back.
No, absolutely. And just we're seeing, and I'm not trying to be a Trump commercial. This isn't
No,
even,
just it's because
but
this is we're
yeah,
hearing a lot about this.
yeah. And what's happening, what you see is at every step, everything he does on any subject, they're suing, they're fighting back. That's what's happening at the local level. But we finally have a voice, and we have an executive order that agrees with us, or other people that are standing up. And so I feel like this next 3.5 years, it's where we can make a lot of headway, and it is local, because that's where
Yeah.
these decisions are made, and it's at the local school board level.
Yeah, I think that's the message. It's not about the person. It's not even about the policy. It's the fact that we're in a position where there is some support
Yes.
behind what most parents, not right or left even, but what most parents believe to be safe or unsafe for their children. And there's
Yep.
some support at this point to be able to get behind this and actually move the ball forward. But you can't just hand the ball off. You have to move the ball forward. And so I
Yeah.
think it's
And
just,
now is the time to do
that's
it.
right.
We are not safe because someone that thinks like we do along parental rights is sitting
Yeah.
in the White House.
Yeah, that's,
It means the fight is at the local level.
yeah, it's great. Okay, I'm curious, are there any statistics that come to your mind that you think, I mean, parents really need to hear this particular statistic to understand the degree of anything that maybe you're talking about or advocating about right now?
Well, I would say, and I actually can't give you well, I can. I just can't give you the source right now, but porn, for the first time, girls are accessing porn at a younger age than boys.
Wow.
And I believe it's 9.1 for girls and 9.6 for boys. And erotica is considered porn. So through the reading and getting on gadgets. I will also say I don't know a school district that does not have what I consider pervasively vulgar pornographic books in them. I don't care where you are. Oklahoma, they have a great superintendent.
Great.
Oklahoma, I'm speaking there next month. Um, Oklahoma has some of the worst books in the entire country. And the superintendent has tried to do something, but there's a Supreme Court ruling that says it has to be done locally at the local school board level. And so there's only so much that that superintendent of the Oklahoma schools has been able to do. And so I just want to encourage parents to really look into what's going on in your school, and don't think because somebody wears a "What Would Jesus Do" bracelet or the superintendent attends the same church. I'm not saying that means they're bad. I'm just saying it doesn't mean your kids are safe.
That's right.
The infrastructure is pretty rotten to its core, and you need to know what's going on. And now is the time where you have the support to get it fixed and to get it changed. And there are groups. I mean, Suzanne, like your group, you and I have talked. I don't want parents to drop everything and become an activist or have to register a lobbyist like me. That isn't what we're called to do. I was called to be a mom and a wife, and I was a homeschool mom, and that's why I volunteered for years. But there are organizations that God has put in place, and you need to, whether it's guns that you care about or whatever, red dye. There are organizations that exist so that you can rely on their research and information.
That's exactly right.
In order to then be equipped to go to those school board meetings, because I want you with your kids at dinner at night. I want you to be dropping people off at soccer, to be volunteering at your church, to be hosting Bible study. And so we need to be a resource for those parents that want to do something but get overwhelmed. Again, my story, I didn't know you could go to the Capitol and talk to a lawmaker. I kid you not, I bought my first suit. My daughter was 5. I didn't know. And it was years later when I got all my old report cards that, wow, well, it might be because I had a D- in government in 8th grade. But now I help write laws. So again, he does equip the called. And you know what? Your calling may be to pray. Your calling may be to just watch a school board meeting online, or to forward emails from a group. Or it may be to get up and go read something at a school board meeting. That's something between you and the Lord. But he's got a role for all of us in reclaiming our culture for Christ.
Yeah, that's so well stated. I think that's even with my organization, Beacon Parent, that's one of the things that we really want to do is provide vetted resources for parents who want a biblical worldview across the board, really just to lift that off so that there's a central place to go. And you've done the same thing. I do, before we close, I do want parents to understand how does the map work? How do they come and figure out what's in their library? Where do they go to find that? And how does it work? And then I want you to end with a word of encouragement for parents. But
okay. Well, you can go to takebacktheclassroom.com and you can click on your state. Your state will pop up. We'll show you how many books are in that are pervasively vulgar. And let me just caveat this. We're getting ready to release another set of books, but we only did the top 300 books, and we have about 300 more pervasively vulgar books that need to be added. So this is not everything. Yeah. We had to start with a number somewhere because it was just too big. So you go there, you see your school. You'll see if we haven't searched it yet. It will be on soon because we will be at 100% by the end of another year. But we actually list the book in the school, and you click on that, and then we give you an excerpt from the book. Okay. And then we have a downloadable excerpt list that has all the excerpts that we've pulled out to show that it's pervasively vulgar. And that's where you start. You
So
start
good.
looking at what's in your personal school and then develop a plan or work with us to a plan to try and get those books out. And that is really how the website works. It's very specific. We have a programmer that built a program that pulls it directly from the school's own information. And so
It's incredible.
it's all accurate. We update it regularly.
What
So
an
yeah.
incredible tool. What an incredible tool. Any last words of encouragement for a parent who may have listened to this and might be a little bit overwhelmed, might be falling into a little bit of fear. My kids are exposed. I didn't know. But just a word of encouragement for them as we just wrap up the talk.
Well, this has been my verse since COVID, and it's the Esther 4:14 that we've been called for such a
Mm,
time as this. But the verse starts out with, "For if you remain silent."
mm.
And so I want to encourage you. I know it's overwhelming. I mean, I just went to this school board meeting probably to get out of the house with 4 kids, for a little bit, and was
Yeah,
shocked at what was going
yeah.
on, and I felt like I needed to get engaged. I don't have a law degree. I have a 2-year fashion degree. It's silly that God would have me. I shouldn't probably accuse him of being silly, but of having me in this position. And but you are called, and for this time. We are living in historical times. The events we have been through with COVID, Iran, October 7th, the Twin Towers, all of that. This is a time we have been called to, and we are not to remain silent. What that means is between you and the
That's
Lord.
right.
So don't let Satan throw that fear in there. Give it up to the Lord and have him show you what he wants you to do. And it's going to be different for every single person.
So great. Karen, thank you so much. Thanks for just an incredible interview, and for the facts, and for your fight, and for staying in it. I mean, you've been doing this a long time, and it's so appreciated. You've really been a pioneer. So thank you for being on today and for sharing your work.
Oh, well, Suzanne, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, parents, I know that is a bit of a heavy subject, but I can't stress enough how often this is happening. These books, how pervasive they are. I think Karen does a great job of making us aware. But here's why I really wanted you to hear that. She has a tool. She has a tool. I can't even believe anybody could create that tool. But for you to be able to go on a website, pull up your school, and just see what's happening. Maybe she hasn't hit every single school across the country, but she's hit a lot of them. And for you to be able to see and to ask questions, again, if you have the information, you can ask your student, your child, are you seeing this? Has this book assigned? I know in high school, I really wasn't asking my kids what's your assignment, what's your book. I was trusting them by that point to get their work done. And so I love the fact that she's equipping you to be able to ask the questions, if not of your student, of the teacher or of the school. She's equipping you to go to school boards. Should that be something you feel called to? I do think it was a great point that she made. You don't actually have to even physically step into the school board meeting. You can watch them online and hear what's going on. Are there other parents that are starting to challenge? Are there other people that you know that are asking the same questions you are? That's the point of this episode, is not, this is something you have to do. It's like, what is it that you're being called to do? And are you aware, so that your kids are not swept away with something that you had no idea was there to begin with? And so I hope that as you lean in and you listen, you're intrigued. Again, don't want to put too much of it out there, but the content is not, it's not just sort of icky. It is awful. And so I want to stress the fact that this is not people blowing this out of proportion. It's everywhere. It's deep, but God equips us. And so I hope that you were encouraged with that. I love Karen's charge at the end. And so let's lean in. Let's do the work. Our kids need the protection, right, to get solid footing before we launch them into the world, so they can discern these things for themselves as they grow. And I hope this episode now helps you parent with purpose, disciple with direction, and leave an intentional legacy.